A sea whose temperature in summer is only just above freezing. A coastline torn by great glaciers which inch their way out of the mountains until they carve, a poetic name for dumping their ice into the sea. A bald eagle, disturbed in its pursuit of fish by the glacier's death throes, gives scale to this enormous river of ice. Why should an eagle, or any other wild creature, choose to inhabit such a place? The answer is that there's an abundance of food here in what could be called cold storage. These daunting waters are some of the most attractive on Earth to fish and fish-eating animals. The dirty grey ice is a sign of summer. It comes from the breakup of the 1,500 kilometers long Yukon River. In these waters, fog occurs all year round. Ice and fog give a clue to just why the Bering Sea and the Gulf of Alaska are so rich in all forms of marine life. The fog is produced by cold air meeting warmer air. The richness of the sea is produced by the relatively warm Japanese current meeting the cold Alaskan current. Where warm and cold currents combine, life-enriching minerals well up from the ocean bed, and many forms of life benefit. "71% of the Earth's surface is covered by ocean. Much of it supports relatively little life. One indication of fertility is the presence of great numbers of seabirds. The cold, shallow Gulf of Alaska and the Bering Sea are incredibly rich in marine life. This whaling factory ship, Coldbrook, is a wartime wreck. Her last resting place is Middleton Island in the Gulf of Alaska. She may seem like a useless pile of rusting scrap, but to the kittiwakes, which return to the island each year to breed, she provides an ideal alternative to the cliffs. Her superstructure, hull and masts provide perfect nesting ledges. In kittiwake nesting colonies, space is at a premium, and they build their nests just far enough apart to be out of pecking range of their nearest neighbours. These two are not disputing territory, but are a mated pair courting. They're usually monogamous, and the pair bond is renewed each season. As the nesting season gets underway in early June, every ledge on the old ship is fully exploited. But even so, the wreck is really only an annex to the main kittiwake colony on the cliffs a kilometre away. Middleton Island lies 120 kilometres off mainland Alaska. This cliff is the moraine deposited by an ancient glacier in the days when much of the Gulf was dry land. It's an ideal location for the kittiwakes, which return to the same site year after year. These downy young will be able to fly within 40 days of hatching. The adult birds make short trips to sea to catch small fish and scoop up crustacea from the surface to feed themselves and their young. In these rich northern waters, food is not normally a problem. The young return to the breeding colony when they're around 3 years old. Other nesting seabirds share the cliffs with the kittiwakes. These are common guillemots. In Pacific waters, they're known as mures. In the Arctic, the auk family, to which guillemots belong, occupies the niche filled by penguins in the Antarctic. One explanation of why there are no penguin colonies in the Arctic is that they couldn't survive attacks by land predators, such as polar bears or Arctic foxes. The northern seabirds avoid these dangers by nesting on inaccessible ledges. The kittiwakes also share their nesting cliffs with pelagic cormorants. Many of the auks of the North Pacific differ considerably in appearance from their Atlantic relatives. Tufted puffins grow long yellow drooping tufts as part of their breeding plumage. The wrecked steamer highlights the hostility of these cold northern waters to human travellers. To bird voyagers, they provide a home and a plentiful source of food. It might seem normal for seabirds to survive harsh conditions, but what of the large mammals which live around these unfriendly shores? Alaska is home for many thousands of them too.
Morning.
Compared with the sea, inland Alaska is empty of large wild animals, with a few notable exceptions. Brown bears know the shoreline is a good place to look for food. Here, they can dig for clams. Bears are opportunist feeders and will take advantage of whatever food is available, from berries to carrion to fresh-run salmon. Their digestive systems are so formidable that they can even swallow clamshells without harm. In a few weeks' time, many bears will come down to the coast to catch the Pacific salmon as they force their way upriver from the sea to spawn. This bear is a little early, but brown bears rarely go short of food. When it tires of sniffing out clams, it will probably dig up roots and spring shoots further inland. Bears are still fairly numerous in Alaska. Until it was reintroduced in the 1930s, this huge animal had entirely disappeared. A bull musk ox runs past in panic. He's become separated from the herd. 100 years ago, musk oxen were common throughout Alaska and Arctic Canada. Then the whalers and trappers began to slaughter them for meat and for their hides, which make magnificent robes able to keep out the most penetrating cold. They were easy to slaughter because of their habit of forming a defensive circle when threatened and then just standing there. This was effective against their traditional predators, but useless against a bullet. Even when only one was needed for meat, the rest of the herd would stand guard over the carcass, so the simplest way to obtain it was to shoot the rest. Although it resembles a bison or wild ox, the musk ox is more closely related to goats and sheep. Its name comes from the strong, musky odor, detectable at 100 meters, that the bull emits from its nose glands during the rutting season. They are extremely protective of their young. At the first sign of danger, they encircle the calves. These musk oxen are part of a successful reintroduction made on Alaska's Nunivak Island, just south of the Arctic Circle. The original 31 animals have now reached more than 1,000. This herd of 13 crossed the ice to a tiny island in search of grazing. The ice thawed, marooning them. They appeared to be doomed, but eventually wildlife rangers managed to persuade them to swim back to the main island. The cold waters of the Bering Sea support one of the most prosperous marine mammal communities in the world. Stella's sea lion bull weighs 700 kilos. It's a dominant male with a harem of sea lion cows in its territory. Stellas are the largest of the 5 species of sea lions. Their home is the northern Pacific from the Arctic to California. This colony is on one of the rocky, uninhabited Samedi Islands in the Bering Sea. The bulls have come ashore first to stake out their territories. Younger bulls are driven away to spend their time offshore or on the fringes of the colony. The cows are small by comparison. Sometimes they react aggressively to the bull's advances. Mating takes place immediately after the calves are born. Then the bulls go back to sea while the cows stay on the shore. The colony becomes comparatively peaceful again. In place of the challenging roars of the bulls, there is just the continual sound of mothers calling their pups. Fishermen usually complain of the damage that numbers of seals and sea lions cause to fish stocks. But such is the fertility of this chilly sea that there is enough to feed all concerned. Stella's sea lions compensate for some of the damage they do to salmon stocks by feeding on sea lampreys, which kill numbers of salmon. The sea lion's pups play in the safety of the shallow rock pools. Very soon now, they'll be swimming as confidently as their mothers. They double their birth weight in a couple of weeks on the rich milk. Though they will be capable of feeding themselves very soon, they sometimes suckle for up to a year. In the sea lion nursery, they play and learn the skills they will need later to survive. Sea lions and several species of seals, including vast colonies of fur seals in the Pribilof Islands, all keep to their own traditional beaches. One very impressive species selects only the loneliest and least accessible spots to haul out. Round Island is a typical choice. Far out in the Bering Sea, Round Island is not surprisingly one of the walrus islands. Round Island's beaches provide walruses with excellent resting places. Only bull walruses come here. They bask on the rocks in a dense aggregation called a haul-out. Walruses live in herds of up to 100 animals. A big bull can weigh over 1,500 kilos, but the cows are considerably smaller. The huge ivory tusks are used as ice axes for hauling out onto floes and for levering the animal forward over frozen surfaces. The generic name means he who walks with his teeth. The front flippers are extremely powerful, enabling the walrus to move on dry land almost as fast as a man can run. Despite their apparent preference for the land, they are highly adapted to life in water and can swim at speeds of up to 24 kilometers per hour. Walruses can be very aggressive. This one bears evidence of many battles. Its tusks, which are actually teeth, have been broken off short. On the whole, though, a walrus colony is a fairly peaceful place. The story of the walrus is similar to that of other marine mammals for which man has found a use. When whales first became scarce in these Arctic waters, as early as the 1870s, the whalers turned to sealing. By the 1900s, they'd almost exterminated the hundreds of thousands of fur seals on the nearby Pribilof Islands. Then they turned their attention to the biggest of all seals, the walrus. On the beaches, they were sitting targets. They even harpooned them in the water. The walrus had an added commercial attraction: valuable ivory. By the 1930s, the world population of both the North Atlantic and Pacific races was at danger point. Since then, conservation measures have probably saved the Pacific walrus. The Atlantic subspecies is still endangered. Because they still largely rely on the meat and oil, the coastal Inuit Eskimos are allowed to hunt walruses. But where they were once armed with primitive harpoons, they now use repeating rifles. With a harpoon, the body of the walrus was almost always recovered because the harpoon was attached to a line. With a rifle, at least half the walrus's shot are wasted. Walruses have a pair of pouches on the neck which can be inflated with air, and when one is shot in the water, the pouches deflate and the animal sinks. Some people now maintain that if the Inuit are to continue hunting as they still need to, they should use their traditional weapons and skills. Looking at the richness of these remote waters that lie between Russia and Alaska, it would seem impossible that such wealth could be squandered merely by man's influence, for the fertility of the Gulf of Alaska and the Bering Sea is created by forces far beyond mankind's skills and strengths to control. Yet the truth is different. Man stopped hunting just in time to avoid exterminating the fur seal and the walrus. Only a tiny proportion of the whales that once visited the Bering Sea in summer are now sighted there. The terminus of the Alaska oil pipeline on the coast at Valdez brings supertankers and the accompanying menace of oil spills. As man exploits these fragile areas of the world, he must also learn to protect them while there is still time.
A cold contrast tomorrow when Polestars compares the wildlife of the Arctic and Antarctic. Prepare for polar bears and more.